One day you're coming home from one of your favorite spots. All of a sudden, you're surrounded by cop cars and you're getting snatched out of your car. From what you understand, you did nothing wrong, but the cops later say it was a routine traffic stop. How does a routine traffic stop end up in death? Join me as I examine the murder of Tyre Nichols on this episode of True Crime and Authors.
Welcome to True Crime and Authors Podcast, where we bring two passions together. The show that gives new meaning to the old adage, truth is stranger than fiction. Here's your host, David McClam.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of True Crime and Authors. Of course, I'm your man, David McClam. Hey, if you guys haven't already, make sure you follow us on all of our social medias. One link to a link tree will get you every link that you need for the show in the show notes. Today's case is a heartbreaking one. It is one that everybody is talking about right now, but I felt like this would be the time to do that because it's a case that's going to continuously to evolve over time. And then I'll tell you what I really think happened and the cause behind this whole situation. So today's case is on the murder of Tyre Nichols. Now, if you've been paying attention to the news, I do not know how you have been able to avoid this story. It has been on every news channel. It has been on a lot of YouTube channels. A lot of true crime YouTubers has dug into this, especially those of us that are African American. It is definitely a case we need to talk about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through the case, read it like it is here. I will apologize now because I feel like in this case, you need to hear it the way that it was. So I'm going to read it to you exactly the way that things were said by the police to Tyre. So I apologize right now for the bad language that may be there, but it is a part of this story. So a little bit by Tyre Nichols when we dive into that. His full name was Tyre DeAndre Nichols. He was born June 5th of 1993. He was a 29-year-old black man. He worked for FedEx and had a 4-year-old son. He was also an amateur photographer with a photography website. Tyre was raised in Sacramento, California, and moved to Memphis in 2020. And according to his family's attorney, Tyre had a very slim build due to Crohn's disease and weighed 145 pounds at a height of 6'3". So on January 7th of 2023, 5 black police officers of the Memphis Police Department severely beat Tyre Nichols, a 29-year-old black man, during a traffic stop. Tyre Nichols was hospitalized in critical condition and died 3 days later. The officers claimed to have stopped Nichols for reckless driving. They pulled him from his car and used pepper spray and a taser on him. During the incident, Nichols managed to break away. When officers caught up with Nichols, they beat him for about 3 minutes, punching and kicking him in the head and striking him on the back with the baton while he was restrained. Both the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the U.S. Department of Justice opened investigations, and the 5 officers were fired on January the 20th. The preliminary results of an autopsy commissioned by Nichols' family and released on January 23rd found extensive bleeding caused by a severe beating. The 5 officers were arrested on January 26th and charged with murder, kidnapping, assault, and misconduct. 3 firefighters, 2 emergency medical technicians, and a lieutenant who attended the scene were relieved of duty and subsequently fired for failing to conduct an adequate patient assessment of Nichols, and 2 other police officers were also later relieved of duty. On January 27th, the MPD released 4 clips of edited video from January 7th. I want you to remember the words edited video, showing various events between 8:24 p.m. and 9:02 p.m. The release of this police body camera footage plus surveillance footage were followed by widespread protests. All right, so now hearing that, let's get into, before I start dissecting this for you, exactly why he was pulled over, because if you remember, he was told that this was due to a traffic stop. Let me read to you how this traffic stop went down, and I'm going to dissect this for you because this case is not everything in which it seemed. But remember, I did tell you to remember the words edited video, and I'll tell you why that is here in just a second. Tyre was 2 minutes away from his home when he was stopped by MPD at 8:24 p.m. on January 7th of 2023. Body-worn camera footage shows that Nichols' car was stopped in the left turn lane on Range Road near the intersection with Ross Road, with police vehicles surrounding his car on 3 sides. Body-worn camera footage also shows officers can be heard discussing his alleged driving, swerving, and nearly hitting one of them. The body-worn camera footage released by the city of Memphis on January 27th does not show any activity earlier than an officer responding to a stop in progress. Now, the first thing that we got to get out of the way is this. This was supposed to be a routine traffic stop. When is the last time that you saw a routine traffic stop, or that you were in a routine traffic stop, and 5 police cars is already surrounding you before this even happens? No sirens, no lights, no anything. You just get stopped. You're already surrounded by police. When's the last time you had a traffic stop like that? At the traffic stop, officers pulled Nichols out of his car as he said, "I didn't do anything." And officers shouted, "Get on the fucking ground. I'm going to tase your ass." Officers pushed Nichols to the ground. At about 8:25 p.m., a struggle began between the officers and Nichols. They attempted to force Nichols to lie on his stomach on the ground and to put his hands behind his back while threatening him, yelling expletives, and using pepper spray and a taser on him. The pepper spray also hit several of the officers. Ultimately, Nichols broke free and ran south on Ross Road, where he was pursued by at least 2 officers. 2 more police units arrived at the scene of the traffic stop around 8:29 p.m., and footage showed that one officer who remained at the area of the traffic stop said, "I hope they stomp his ass." Now, let's deal with that. Remember, I just asked you, when's the last time you seen a traffic stop where you were surrounded by police officers because it's a routine traffic stop? Let's go further with that. When's the last time that you was pulled over by the police for routine traffic stop? You surrounded by police officers, and without warning, they open your door and they snatch you out of the car. First of all, let me tell you this. That is an illegal stop. Further down this, I'm going to let you hear from an ex-cop of the MPD. He's going to tell you exactly that. The stop that they made on Tyre was illegal in the first place. It's totally illegal. 2, they cannot just open your door and snatch you out of the car unless they have probable cause. And what I mean by probable cause, I mean, you're on this call, you're on a pursuit. They've already told you, "Hey man, look, there's a baby in the back," or "This is a known drug dealer," or "This is the murderer that we've been trying to track." That gives you probable cause. There was no probable cause to do this to Tyre. Now let's tackle this, because I'm tired of hearing people go, "Well, if he wasn't resisting arrest and if he wasn't running, he wouldn't be dead." That ain't true, because now his body goes into fight or flight mode. I want you to understand, there is no marked police cars. This was ran by the Scorpion unit. The Scorpion unit had unmarked police cars. They wore vests that said police, that you don't see the police on the back of that until they get near you. Don't tell me that if somebody snatches you out of your car, throws you on the ground, you have no idea if it is police. They're not even identifying themselves as police. They didn't once say, "I'm Officer so-and-so from the MPD." They didn't say, "Stop police." They didn't say, "Freeze, this is the police." They didn't say anything about being police. This is a routine traffic stop. What happened to, "Sir, do you know why you're getting pulled over? Can I please see your driver's license and insurance?" None of that happened. It was a stop, open door, snatch out, throw on the ground, pepper spray. I probably would have ran too. Because I don't know who you are. I don't know what you are. You ain't told me anything. You just commencing to whipping my behind, but you didn't tell me anything about who you are. So I'm tired of hearing, so people stop saying he wouldn't have ran. I would have ran too, and I believe you would have too under those circumstances. Let's carry on. Officers caught up to Nichols at 8:33 p.m. at Castlegate Lane in Bear Creek, which is approximately a half a mile, 800 meters away from the original traffic stop. He was then beaten for 3 more minutes. Body cam footage showed an officer shouting to Nichols, "I'm going to baton the fuck out of you." After that, officers pulled Nichols to a standing position and restrained his hands. During this time, Nichols was repeatedly punched in the face by officers, and eventually he fell to a kneeling position. Within the next minute, Nichols was kicked by an officer. The footage shows at least 5 punches to Nichols' face. And the New York Times reported that Nichols repeatedly cried out for his mother and during the beating. Now, remember the words edited video. This is where it comes in. If you see the video, it shows where they snatch him out, put him down, and it shows where Tyre gets up and starts to run. But what happens is it immediately cuts to them already caught him and he's handcuffed. They edited something out of that video. What they edited out is something that was damning. You can believe that. There's some audio that is missing from that video that I don't even believe that Tyre's family has even heard. There's a reason why that's cut right there. They had restrained his hands and they had moved into a standing position. And then within minutes, another cop came over and kicked him in the face. Like I said, this case is not what it's cracked up to be. It's believed that he was being held for that particular officer, but I will get into that when I tell you what I think exactly happened and why Tyre was done the way he was done. So by 8:37 p.m., Nichols was handcuffed and limp. Officers propped him against the side of a police car. And after Nichols was on the ground, the involved officers convened and shared their stories about the arrest. One officer bragged, "I was hitting him with straight haymakers, dog," while another exclaimed, "I jumped in, started rocking him." Medics arrived around 8:41 p.m. but did not begin to assist Nichols until 16 minutes later. An ambulance arrived at 9:02 p.m. and took Nichols to St. Francis Hospital at 9:18 p.m. after he complained of shortness of breath. Now, for all of you out there that says that he should have complied with the police, I'm going to tell you it's fight or flight mode. But then some people say, well, he was given all these commands and he didn't follow those, so that would have saved his life. Listen to this. On scene, video footage showed officers issued at least 71 commands over 13 minutes. The New York Times described the orders as often simultaneous and contradictory, sometimes even impossible to obey, citing an example where the officer who struck Nichols with the baton was shouting, "Give us your hands," but another officer was already manipulating Nichols' handcuffed arm. Then when an officer shouted, "Give me your fucking hands," Nichols had one officer pinning his arms behind his back, a second officer holding his handcuffed wrist, and a third officer was punching Nichols in the face. Don't tell me anything about him not complying, because they gave him 71 commands in 13 minutes that even you wouldn't understand. How can you give somebody your hands when somebody else is already manipulating the hand that you got in the handcuffed? How can you give somebody your hands when another officer is pinning your arm behind your back? And now you got another one that's also still holding a handcuffed wrist, and a third officer is punching you in the face. There is no way you can comply. That's as if I came to work and told you, I need you to go over here and move this crate. Then I want you to go over here and take these oranges. Then you need to go and dump this. Hold up, dog. That's too many commands. Where do I begin? What is the order so that I can follow that? It wasn't given 1, 2, and 3. You can hear him shouting at him. One dude's roll over. One dude sit up. One dude's give me your hands. What you supposed to do? Again, he is still in a situation where he has an unmarked vehicles and somebody's just whipping his behind, and they still don't know at this point it's the police until some units start pulling up. Maybe he's making sense of it now that maybe it is the police, but nobody ever told him that. There's more to this than meets the eye. On January 8th, the department stated that the traffic stop of Nichols was due to reckless driving. On January 27th, Memphis Police Chief Saralyn J. Davis stated that her department reviewed footage, including from body cameras regarding the traffic stop and the arrest, to determine what that probable cause was, and we have not been able to substantiate that. It doesn't mean that something didn't happen, but there's no proof. That is a covering your behind statement. Let me tell you what that really means. Let me tell you what Cyril and Jay Davis really is saying to you. There is no evidence. There is no proof that Tyre Nichols did anything wrong. There is no evidence on this body camera. There's no evidence on the dash cam. We didn't ever see him driving recklessly. We didn't see him breaking any laws, but she's got to say, doesn't mean that it didn't happen, because families is about to sue the hell out of the police department, and you as the chief don't want to look like that you messed up. That's where that comes from. The truth is, folks, there was no reckless driving. The truth is, Tyre Nichols did nothing wrong that day. That's the truth. That's what Cyril and Davis knows. That's what these cops know, without coming out directly saying it. Not to mention the Scorpion unit was put together by Cyril and Davis, the chief. So what does Scorpion stand for? Very ironic. Scorpion stood for Street Crimes Operations to Restore Peace in Our Neighborhoods. Tell me what part of what I just told you is restoring peace. Let me go a little further with that. This is a unit that has the green light to do whatever they want to, whenever they want to. Unmarked cars and just police jackets. No leash. They had no fear of a supervisor ever pulling up on them, checking on them, taking complaints. None of that. They were given free rein by the chief to do whatever they wanted to do. And that's exactly what they did. She's just as guilty as everybody else. And there's things coming out about Cyril and Davis now since this case has been going on. How do you give a group of police officers free rein? That's like taking your child who's 3, who loves candy, and put him in the candy store and say, hey, I'm just going to walk away for about 7 hours, do whatever you want to. That kid's going to eat every piece of candy in that store because there is no one supervising him or her and saying, you can't do this. The Scorpion unit was disbanded, I believe the next day after that, because now there's too much blood on everybody's hands. So what happened? What was filed in the police report? This is enough to make you cry right here. What did they say in the police report about why they had to beat this young man like this? Here's what the police report said. They wrote the police report 2 hours after he was beaten. The police report claims that in the first encounter, Tyre Nichols was irate and sweating profusely when he left his vehicle, refused to be detained with pepper spray and a taser stun gun ineffective on Nichols. For the second encounter between Nichols and police, the report claims that Nichols resisted arrest by grabbing an officer's duty belt and another officer's vest, ignored their orders, leading to officers using pepper spray and striking Nichols with a baton. Nichols was eventually taken into custody after several verbal commands. 199,000% lies. And if you don't believe me, watch the video. None of that ever happened. This is, I need to cover my butt, so here's the story we're going to go with. First of all, they said that he got out of his vehicle sweating profusely and he refused to be detained. They said that the taser gun and the pepper spray was ineffective. So what they're pretty much trying to tell you is he was high. He was on some type of drug that alters the state of the body, like a PCP. If you see people on some PCP, yeah, you can hit them with a boulder and they keep coming. Matter of fact, on the video, they start trying to set that up. You hear a couple cops go, man, he higher than hell. He high. Tyre was not high. He didn't have no drugs. He wasn't on drugs. He didn't do drugs. This is the story, though, they have to spin. So what they're coming back saying is this kid was on some stuff. He was so high, we didn't have a choice but to beat him down. Then after he ran and they tackled him, they're like, oh yeah, well, he resisted arrest and he grabbed an officer's duty belt. It's on video. It never happened. It's on cameras that they didn't even think that they would have shining on them, because when they chased him down and they tackled him, There was a camera on a pole. That's where they get a lot of this footage from, of them just beating him down. This report was written this way to say this is why we had to use lethal force, because he was hopped up on something. He was resisting arrest. He was grabbing duty belts. He was grabbing a vest. He ignored every order that we gave him. But after we beat him down and we used some more pepper spray, eventually we was able to subdue him, and he did obey several commands. Really? It never happened. And that's what the next statement says. The released videos did not corroborate the police report's claim that Nichols started to fight with officers or even that he had been violent at all. The released videos also did not corroborate the officers' claim that Nichols reached for their weapons. Seth Staunton, a law professor and use of force expert, noted that an officer typically shouts it out immediately if they see a suspect reach for a weapon, and none did so in the videos of their struggles with Nichols. The initial police report did not state that officers had punched and kicked Nichols. You put everything else in the police report except that you punched and kicked him, MMA style. Let me tell you the name of these officers. I'm going to tell you what you guys just witnessed. I'm going to tell you what happened. I know a lot of people's looking to see if I'm going to say that this is a racist beating. I am going to tell you this. Just because you black don't mean that you're not racist. You need to understand that. There's racism that flows through the veins of a lot of people, and unfortunately, there is people that is racist against their own color, and black people is no different. However, I don't believe that this case is 100% about that. To kind of prove that statement, let me read you this quote. They asked 4 questions to Reverend Dante Stewart. He's an author and he's a pastor, and he deals a lot with things that happen to black people in their in lives and things of that nature. So they asked him, they said, you write just because black people are present doesn't mean anti-blackness is absent. Does systemic racism exist in policing that affects all officers? Here's what he said. He said, history tells the story that it doesn't matter who has the badge. The badge has power that whiteness has given it in the world, whether one is able to stop a person because they believe that they are criminal, or they believe they're in the wrong place, or they believe that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. That is a power that has been given to them, that has been inherited from the inception of this nation. As a black person, when I get the badge or when I get the ball, my race is in some sense under the shadow and the covering of it. So it doesn't matter who it is. It is about what policing has meant and has done to us and continues to do to us. So yes, the historical record shows that no matter who they are or where they come from, policing does something to people in this country. We know it and we better deal with it. I think that's pretty much telling you it doesn't matter who have the badge. Sometimes people has too much power. They cannot handle that. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to play you a clip from an officer who used to work at the MPD. Now, he used to work on the Scorpion unit, and he's going to tell you exactly why, even if Tyre did not run, that he feels like he still would have died. So let's listen to him.
You know, I left the department in the end of 2021 after 5 years of service, and people ask me all the time, what do you think about the Tyre Nichols incident moving forward? And there are some points that I want to point out after watching the video and kind of seeing what's been going on in Memphis that I think will be really interesting to you. So 2 of the 5 officers I did patrol with personally and did have a personal relationship with 2 of the 5. So I'm going to be talking from a personal standpoint and from a standpoint as a former Memphis police officer and what I see moving forward. And even though I know 2 of the 5 personally and I patrolled with them personally and had a relationship with them, this in no way excuses any of their actions that partook about 2 weeks ago with the Tyre Nichols incident. The first thing that I want to talk about, which is utter BS, is you'll see a lot of conservatives, but you see a lot of far-right conservatives that say, why did he run? He would still be alive if he ran. That's not a guarantee. So the first thing that came out was that this all started because this was a reckless driving. But now the chief of the department is saying that there is no evidence of reckless driving, which means you can't say that if he never ran that he would still be alive when the stop was illegal in the first place. Now, I have had to pull out people ripped people out of a car aggressively at gunpoint with foul language many a times. But most of those people were murderers, robbers, sexual assaulters, the worst of the worst, where you needed to meet violence with violence. Never once did I put my gun in the face of somebody who I suppose for reckless driving, right? So from the get-go, you have a man who was not guilty of anything fleeing from the police because he's scared because he doesn't even know why he's getting pulled over in such an aggressive manner. So as a black male, I probably would have ran too, and I was the police for 5 years.
There you have it. That came straight from a MPD officer that did 5 years on the force. And you just heard everything that he had to say. Now, let me tell you in closing what I think happened in this whole entire case. The officers that was there, Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, Emmett Martin III, Desmond Mills Jr., and Justin Smith. These are the 5 cops that were fired. As you heard, yes, they're all 5 black cops. Again, they were charged with murder in the 2nd degree, kidnapping, assault, and misconduct. What you guys have witnessed is a good old-fashioned hood beating. I know what one looks like. I was raised in the hood. I come from there. What you just seen to happen to Tyree is the same stuff that happens when gangs get together and feel like that they've been disrespected or somebody's crossed their territory. Now we've got to handle it. The only difference is these people have badges. And everybody wonders why I always refer to the police as gangsters with badges. Here's your proof right here. Here's really what happened. They need to all be charged with 1st-degree murder because this, my friends, was a setup. This was premeditated. They targeted Tyre Nichols. I'm going to tell you why I come to that conclusion, and I'm going to tell you why I feel like a whole lot of my other fellow true crime podcasters and YouTubers feel this way as well. Let's start with the video. Like I said, in the beginning, he gets snatched straight out of his car. Nobody ever tells him anything. Now, there's another cop named Preston Hemphill who has recently been relieved of duties. However, I don't want you guys to get that confused with being fired. He has not been fired as far as we know. He's been relieved of duty pending an investigation. He's the cop that I believe that you see in the video that's actually pulling out the taser as they're yelling, "Get on the ground," as they're snatching him out of the car. I believe he's also the cop that said that he hoped they beat him down. It's important to remember that because there was another cop. This was a white cop that had actually gotten relieved of duty, but he hasn't been fired yet. Now, if you look at that second video, if you watch closely with that, like I said, it starts with him getting caught. That's why we know the video was altered. He's already on the ground and they're holding him as if they're waiting for someone. This is where the kidnapping charge comes in, is because they actually are seen holding him as if they were waiting for somebody to come and to show up. Now, if you look even closer in that second video, there is a cop car that is going lengthways the way that the camera is shooting it. If you look very closely in the back, you got to look real close. You will see that there is a silhouette of somebody putting on a mask. That mask man was Officer Demetrius Haley. You see him come around the corner with the mask on and he kicks him in the face a couple times. Now he just straight kicks him. He did like a martial arts kick. I think there's even a name for it. They don't even allow this kind of kick in martial arts. You can't do this kind of kick in MMA. You can't do it in the octagon because they know if you kick somebody in the face this way, there is a high probability that you could kill them. That kick's even been outlawed, but this cop has used it on Tyre twice. Now he pulls his mask up, but before he does, you see him saying something to him, and another cop is also saying something to him. We don't know what that is because that part of the audio also was cut out. Whatever he said to him is something that they don't want anybody else to know. Then you have to start dissecting the lies that they told. First, he was reckless driving. Then he was going the wrong way on the road. Lies they used to cover up what they did. This appears to be, well, for lack of a better word, revenge. Because by this time, Tyre had already ran. You pepper sprayed him. He's been fighting for his life. He's tired. When they caught him, they could have put handcuffs on him or whatever. It's 5 of you. You could have picked him up, put him in the doggone car. It would have been a done deal. This is what police officers do if they are there to really apprehend somebody. But make no mistake about it, they weren't there to apprehend Tyre Nichols. They were there to do exactly what they did, whip him. Again, I say when Tyre ran, it was fight or flight. He figured he was going to die. He might as well die trying. What you guys probably ain't seeing is that he was 70 yards away from his house. He was trying to run home to get to his mama. That's why he's screaming for his mama on the ground, because he's screaming for her that hopefully she can come out and help him out of this predicament that he is in. And nobody cared about that. I also believe that they probably interrogated the cops separately. But no matter what stories they told, I don't think they all matched up. But in the end, they all came back to Demetrius Haley. Now, this is had to be sparked over one individual whose name is Tanisha Jeffrey. Now, it was going around that Tyre was having an affair or was dating Tanisha Jeffrey, and Tanisha Jeffrey is Demetrius Haley's ex-girlfriend. Now, his stepfather has since came out and said, well, that's not true. But I believe what he was saying is that it wasn't true because they said that he was messing with Demetrius Haley's wife. They were not married. But I hate to disagree with his stepfather, but I think there was something here, and I'm going to point out why that evidence is. So Tanisha Jeffrey was the ex-girlfriend of Demetrius Haley. Whether Tyre's stepfather knows it or not, it is true that at least at one point in time, Tyre actually did date or had a thing with Tanisha Jeffrey. Demetrius, I believe, got jealous. This was an elimination. Now, I don't know what the conversation is. I don't know if Tyre was about to get back in that saddle and they was going to date again. I don't know if she lied to Demetrius and said Tyre had did something to her. I don't know what, but she is the reason. I almost guarantee you that this even took place. And I'll tell you why here further, why I have this evidence. So after all this is said and done, Demetrius Haley and his 4 goons has now beaten down Tyre. Here's what you need to pay real close attention to on the video. He takes photos of Tyre being beaten up, sitting next to the cop, damn near unconscious. And then you see him text these photos to Tanisha Jeffrey. Let me say that again. He took photos of this battered, beaten, bruised man, and he sends them to Tanisha Jeffrey, which you could take this one how you want to. On the January 12th, she puts out this tweet. It has all these hearts behind it, and it says, "Justice is served." Somebody said that. Now they're trying to decipher if that tweet meant that she was happy that the people that did this to Tyre was apprehended, or that this was some type of a nod to Demetrius Haley that a good job. Now, I want to tend to believe that it had the first effect, but I don't know. Now, the other thing to clear up is they say that he died 3 days later. Tyre was dead on the 7th, probably at that car. His own mother said the same thing at his funeral. She said that her son was already dead when they got him to the hospital, that the machines was what was breathing for him. Tyre was already gone. So she says he didn't die on the 10th. He died on the 7th. Now, the only thing in this that you can probably say is racist. I don't believe that these other 5 cops beat him down because he was black, but there is reports coming in from other people now that these guys have been locked up that this Scorpion unit have beat up other black males. And Sarah Lynn Davis is getting ridiculed because she's not doing anything about this. Now there's a ton of people coming in saying, I was beat up by this unit. I was beat up by this unit. Demetrius Haley even has an ex-con that when he was the CO who's telling his story now, that Demetrius Haley actually beat him up in prison, slammed his head into a wall. And he said he tried to report this to people and nobody listened. It's hard, people, especially if you are a convict, to get anything pressed on a cop. And they tried. There's people coming into MPD now saying, these people beat me up in this Scorpion unit, and nobody's listening. That's what leads to this kind of stuff. That's what leads to feeling like that you're invincible. Because no matter how many times people has told this story or told on you or said this has happened to me, because you're a man with a badge, we believe everything. I'm tired of hearing that if you take away brute force from police officers, they can't do their job. I'm tired of hearing that. I've interviewed some very respectable cops. They're nice people. I respect them to the hill. They've said that stuff. I'm sorry, you don't live in my skin. I don't buy that, because all I keep seeing, whether the person is black or the person is white, it doesn't matter, is that the police, no matter what color they are using this force excessively when the force does not need to be used. I had a cop still tell me after watching this footage that he believes that excessive force is necessary. You can't tell me any point in this case where excessive force was necessary for this man. He was coming home from taking photographs of the sunset like he always does. He was 2 minutes from home. This is why you have to understand this is a setup. How do they know where he is exactly 2 minutes from his house? If you listen to the video as well, you even have one officer saying, hey, can you run this place and tell me where the address it comes back to? If this was a true legitimate traffic stop, wouldn't you have already ran his plates? I know every time I got stopped by the police, they've been running my plates. This was a hit. Demetrius Haley had his boys get together and they planned this. There is nobody that convinced me otherwise that this was not a planned hit from the beginning to the end to the execution. Now, the one thing that you can look at if people want to use this for racism is we can't ask this question, because this is the question that's going around. How is it that these 5 black police officers got arrested immediately? When it was asked why Derek Chauvin could not be arrested immediately, the response we got back from Minneapolis Police Department was, we got to run an investigation and we got to do all of this and we going to put him on leave. He won't be patrolling the streets, but he going to be getting paid while he's sitting at home. These 5 cops went down immediately. However, it still took them days to arrest the only white cop that was involved, and he did not get fired. You guys can think about that one and tell me what you come with that one. That's what's going around the true crime scene right now. Let me tell you how I conduct cases like these. I always try to take race out of every case I do that has racism to do with it. I try to remove the elements out, then I tear apart the story and I put the story back together again, piece by piece, to see if I can totally eliminate race at any issue. If I come to you and tell you I believe a case is racist, it's because I truly believe that, because I've dissected the case to the point to where I've removed it and then I start adding little things back in to see if it makes any sense. So I'm not one of those ones that come on here and just start yelling racism, racism, racism. Some people already asked me that they don't feel like that black people responded to this the way they thought they should have. Well, let me tell you this. If something happens to you over and over and over and over again, you sit back and you just say, okay, when is it going to happen the next time? The people need to understand, as an African American, this is a scene that's played out in our life for hundreds and hundreds of years. We've never gotten any respect from anybody as far as law enforcement goes. We're getting killed by the droves. If you just look at the database of how many people that are black has been killed in the past 5 years, it's too many to even name here, and it keeps happening. So when it happens again, it becomes desensitized. Now, some people feel like that this may be worse because these were 5 black officers. All I can say to that is this: we spend too much time trying to fight people that's not our color. So to have somebody beating us down that is our color, that's even worse to us. The same usual suspects that fight for our civil rights showed up for this one. The first person always on the scene is the Reverend Al Sharpton. He was there. Ben Crump becoming the lawyer like he did for Trayvon Martin and a number of other people. So it doesn't make the brutality less. Doesn't make what happened less. Does it make people in the black community feel like they can't even trust their own kind? Yeah, I'll be the first one to tell you that. But it doesn't matter what color they are. This is not a color problem. This is a humanity problem. This is a policing problem. However, the sad thing is, the more these cases go on, though, the more people's figuring out that black people just don't make this stuff up, because this kind of stuff has been going on in the black community for years. We've told everybody about it. We've told you about the cops that take us off and beat us in the woods, and people's like, yeah, y'all making that up. We told you about the cops that do things in the dark. Oh, they can't be doing all that. We told you about the cops that use brutality. You had to sit here in 2020 and watch it play out in front of your eyes when George Floyd died. Now you're watching it again with Tyre Nichols, no matter what color the people are. It happens. And until we believe it happens, and until we put an end to it as a people in society, it's going to continue to happen. And you know when people's going to start to care? People's going to really start to care when the names behind these people that are dying are not Tyre, or it's not DeAndre, or it's not some black name, but when it becomes Becky and Donna, then that's when people's going to wake up. But we got to all wake up as a society. It shouldn't matter what color or what name is behind it. What should matter is that we are concerned as people first, that this is even happening in the United States. We should be concerned that people run a risk of this even happening no matter where you are. Because believe me, there's some white road cops, and as you just seen, there's some black road cops. You just can't give people this much power, some of them, and that's what this is. These 5 cops were so powerful that they didn't even fear the fact that they were wearing body cameras. And I can tell you this, Tyre wasn't supposed to be beat up on the street. The way I believe it's going to happen is they were going to stop him like they did, take him out of the car, they were going to cuff him, they were going to put him in another vehicle, and they were going to hand deliver him somewhere else to Demetrius Haley. But they did not anticipate Tyre fighting the way that he did, which circumvented their plan, and they had to take care of him where he was, and they had to write this elaborate story. If you don't believe me that this is like a gang hit, just listen to the conversation that they're having after the fact that they beat him. They're on here talking about some throwing haymakers, dog, and we got up in there and I had to knock him out. Are you okay? You would think that they just got through watching a Mike Tyson fight and Mike Tyson won. They happy. I'll let you guys know this. I'm a big guy. My worst fear every day I drive, and I do a lot of driving because I drive a lot for my job, is that I'm going to get pulled over by a cop, and that cop, no matter what color he is going to be a road cop that day. That's why I got cameras in my car. And that's why I'm adding more cameras this year. Not only because I had a bad experience when I took my car into a dealership that my cameras caught, but because I feel like I need all these cameras pointing at every angle of my vehicle for my protection. So if something like this happens to me, it's caught on camera. And I have the kind of cameras too that it doesn't matter if you unplug them. It doesn't matter if you take away the card. It's all been sent through the cloud to my phone. So no matter what you do to my cameras, I'm going to always have the footage. It's a fear that I should not have. It's a fear that other black people should not have. It's a fear that nobody should have. But make no mistake about it, I think that we are the only race, no matter what color the cop is, that actually train our kids on how to handle the cops in case they get stopped. And it still does not save lives. All of these guys, even Preston Hemphill, should be fired and charged with first-degree premeditated murder because they all was in on this. They all knew they was going to get Tyre. They all knew the outcome's going to be. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that they meant to kill him. I'm not sure that they really did. But on the other hand, if they would have got their way, and they would have moved him someplace else, would they have killed him? Because, a dead man can't tell tales. And the way that they kicked him flat in the face should have known that could kill him. This is what happens when we have police officers or anybody that has enough power to feel like that they are invincible, that they don't even care if they're being recorded. They don't care who could see. Because if it's true with all these stories who's coming with the Scorpion unit, ain't nobody going to talk about it. Matter of fact, the story I had just read that the guy said he never came and told anybody about what the Scorpion unit did to him because he knew that they wasn't going to do anything about it. So we need to start getting at a spot to where we feel safe as a United States citizen and that we can trust the fact that if we go and report an officer, that officer is going to get dealt with. But I can tell you from experience, it doesn't happen. I'm not going to start yelling defund the police. I do think that we do need some law order somewhere. I am going to say that the police department is negligent because they hire bad people. In this case, Demetrius Haley already came in with a record. He was already beating people up as a correction officer in prison. They overlooked that. Now they're trying to blame us, the society, especially black people, because people are saying all these things about the police and it's giving the police department a bad rep, that they can't get candidates, so they just got to go and hire anybody on the street. I don't buy that. It is true that a lot of black people don't want to become cops. They made a movie about it. I think it was called Who's the Man years ago. And that was the whole thing. Who wants to be the man? Nobody want to be the police officers because, we get looked at this way. If you can't hire proper people to do proper background checks with all the money I pay in taxes for you to do those kind of things, that's no excuse. You should know who is on your force at any given time. And they don't know that. So my last thoughts is, Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, Emmett Martin III, Desmond Mills, and Justin Smith should all be, and Preston Hemphill should all be held, fired, and charged with first-degree murder. Forget second degree. But keep watching this case, because I'm telling you, there's more to it than what is being said right now. And I almost promise you that this whole thing I just told you, what I think happened, is going to come up. But I'll say it again. This was a hood beating. They beat him down like he was a rival gang member, and they had to take out their prey. And this is exactly how gangs in the hood do that. They sneak up on somebody, take them, beat them down to the end of their life and leave. And if they die, they die. They don't, they don't. May Tyre Nichols rest in peace. I have sons that's close to that age. 27, 28 this year. As a parent, I don't know what it's like to lose a kid, but I feel them. As a matter of fact, Tyree's middle name is the first name of one of my oldest sons, which is DeAndre. So it hits home. So I hope he rests in peace and may his family over time find the peace to deal with this. And I hope that they get everything that's coming to them. And I will tell you this, Kamala Harris did show up at Tyre Nichols' funeral. And the one thing that she started saying is that the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2021 needs to be passed. I agree. It should have already been passed. It passed the House, but of course, good old Congress is the one that's sitting on it. And she's already said Joe Biden is sitting there waiting to sign this bill. If this bill was already signed, it would have imposed stricter penalties and sanctions on these 5 police officers that just did this ungodly thing. So I say call your Congress. Tell them that this George Floyd Policing Act needs to be passed. We need to hold all of these cops accountable for the things that they do. We need to make them realize that they are not above the law and that we as citizens deserve to be done exactly what the side of their car says, to be protected, and they're supposed to serve us. So I thank you guys for tuning in to this episode, as heartbreaking as it is. Once again, rest in peace to Tyre Nichols. I hope his family does get justice out of this soon. All right, so next week, the author that you guys will hear from will be Laura Quinn, who is the author of Thicker Than Water. You definitely want to tune in for that episode. And then we have an extraordinary person named Stephanie Jordan. She is a born-again Christian, and she is very, very faith-based. She's going to talk about the book that she wrote about boundaries after she became a widow at a very young age. Tune in for both of those. You definitely do not want to miss them. All right, once again, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys are being safe out there. Be good to yourself and each other, and always remember, always stay humble. A little love and compassion goes a long way. And this is the podcast where two passions becomes one. I'll talk to you guys on the next one.
Thank you for listening to True Crime and Authors. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Join us on social media. On Facebook at True Crime and Authors. On Twitter at Authors True. On YouTube and TikTok at True Crime and Authors. And email at truecrimeandauthors@gmail.com. Cover art and logo designed by Dazzling_Ray from Fiverr. Sound mixing and editing by David McClam. Intro script by Sophie Wild from Fiverr. And I'm the voice guy, your imaging guy from Fiverr. See you next time on True Crime and Authors.